Hey guys, today we are talking about solving inequalities. Now, you already know how to do this. You've done it before, and yesterday we practiced being able to write our answers for those inequalities. Well, today all we're doing is solving. Just some things that you need to remember. We got our less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to symbols here. Just remember if it's less than or greater than, if x is on the left, it's going to tell you which way our graph is going to go. So if it's less than, my graph is going to go to the right. If it's greater than, my graph is going to go to the right, and if it's less than, my graph is going to go to the left. Now that only works if it goes x, then your thing, and then what it's equal to, or greater than or less than. So that just can tell you which direction it's going in if x is first, okay? Secondly, if it is less than or greater than, we have an open circle, okay? And if it has this, we have a closed circle. That also means that we use brackets. Remember brackets, like this one, whenever we do our interval notation, when it is equal to, in parentheses, when it is less than or greater than. Okay? All right, now, we see set notation written here, but we're not really going to use set notation that much. But let's just go ahead here. Let's dive down here to number 1 and number 2. So, number 1, I have this inequality. We have the greater than or equal to symbol. So right away, just by looking at this, I know I'm going to use a bracket on my answer, and I'm going to use a closed circle. Okay? So let's go ahead and solve this guy. Now remember, to solve this, we want to move my x's to one side, and for most of today, it's a good idea to just go ahead and move your x's to the left side, so that way it makes more sense. All right, so we're going to go minus 3x here, minus 3x here, and I'm going to end up with 2x minus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 2. Then I'm going to add 3 to both sides here like this, and I'm going to end up with 2x is greater than or equal to 1. Okay? Now, to get that x by itself, I'm going to need to divide both sides by 2, and I'm going to end up with x is greater than or equal to 1/2. Now, that is my answer, and that's what I'm going to write in my inequality spot. So in my inequality spot, I'm going to write x is greater than or equal to 1/2. So now, as we're going through this, I can put a point at 1/2, and then you got to remember, I'm going to fill in that circle at 1/2, and now I have to stop and think. Am I going to go to the right, or am I going to go to the left? Well, since x is on the left, that arrow is going to point me to the right. And that makes sense because I am bigger than 1/2. So it's going to fill in going this direction. It is bigger than 1/2. It's greater than or equal to 1/2. Interval notation. So we got to think, what's my left interval? What's my right interval? Well, my left interval is going to be 1/2, comma, my right interval, it goes on for forever to the right, is infinity. So we're going to have 1/2 bracket to infinity. Okay? Just like that. Okay, so bracket on 1/2 to infinity. And there's our answer. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, I have 4 minus 2x is greater than 6. Now, before we actually do number 2, I need you to come over here to the side, and I want you to write down the following. I want you to write down, when we multiply or divide both sides by a negative, we must flip the inequality. Okay? All right, that's what we're going to write out. Now, this is really important, and you've learned this before. Whenever we multiply or divide both sides by a negative, we flip that inequality symbol. Okay? So, for instance, on this one, as I start off here, if I'm minus 4 here, minus 4 here, I'm going to get, don't forget about that negative, I'm going to get negative 2x is greater than 2. And then to solve this problem, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2, and I'm going to end up with x is less than negative 1. And the reason this happens is when I divided both sides by a negative, and when that happens, we have to flip the sign, okay? The reason is because when we divide both sides by a negative, essentially my whole inequality is reversed, okay? It's still true, but we have to flip that inequality symbol. But anyways, my answer is right here. X is less than -1. So we can write that down here on my inequality. X is less than -1, and I can put that on my graph. Put a point at -1, and since it's less than, arrows going to the left, we're going to fill in smaller than -1, and I'm going to have an open circle here because it is not equal to. Then for my interval notation is going to be -infinity to -1 parentheses. And notice how I use a parentheses instead of a bracket like I did on the last one, because it is not equal to. All right, let's take a look at number 3. So number 3, once again, I'm just going to solve for x. And to solve for this, I'm first going to distribute that 8. So I'm going to have 16x minus 8 is greater than 11x minus 17. And once again, I want to go ahead and move my x's to this side. So I'm going to minus 11x to both sides. And I'm going to get 5x minus 8 is greater than -17. Then I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And we're going to get 5x is greater than -9. Divide both sides by 5. And I'm going to get my final answer. I'm going to write over here so I have enough room. It's going to be x is greater than -9/5. Now, you might be thinking, well, Mr. Martin, should you flip the sign on this one? You divided, and look, there's a negative right there. Shouldn't you flip the sign? No. It's only when what you divide by on both sides is negative, and this one was not. So this one's just going to be greater than. So now I can put a point here. I can write in -9/5. I'm going to leave that circle open, and we're going to go to the right. My inequality is just going to be x is greater than -9/5. And my interval notation is going to be -9/5 to infinity. Okay? Perfect. All right, last one here, number 4. Number 4, we're going to have 5/2. Now, there's multiple ways we could solve this. We could distribute that fraction, which honestly isn't a terrible idea. Why don't we just go ahead and distribute that fraction? So let's go 5/2 times x is going to be 5/2 x. 5/2 times -2. Well, remember, whenever we multiply, and you can always use your calculator for this, but whenever we multiply 2 on top, we're dividing by 2 and we're multiplying it. So those two will cancel, and I'll just end up with a -5 is less than or equal to 15. And then now I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and we're going to get 5/2 x is less than or equal to 20. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that fraction. And we're going to end up with 5x is less than or equal to 40. Then lastly, if I divide both sides by 5, I'm going to get x is less than or equal to 40 divided by 5 is 8. So that's going to be my inequality. X is less than or equal to 8. I can put a point at 8. I'm going to fill that point in because it's equal, and it's going to go to the left. And lastly, my interval notation is going to be -infinity to 8 with a bracket and a parentheses. Okay? All right, hopefully that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, as always, be sure to let me know. Thanks, guys.